Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel, or hello if you're new here. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Today's video is going to be my January reading wrap up, and I'm so excited to film this because as you can see I had a great reading month. I read so many books, I'm really proud, and I feel like I read quite a few bangers. I ticked a lot of my TBR, and also I feel like I got to some books that I had been saying I wanted to read for quite a while, and I finally read them in the month of January. As always, let me know in the comments what books you got to in January, which ones you liked, which ones you didn't like. I'd love to know. I would also love to know if you've read any of these books as well and what you thought on them, if you agreed, disagreed, just let me know. So I'm going to run through all of these books behind me. I think there's 12 books. There's 11 physical books and then one Kindle book that I read in January. I think I read 4 out of 6 of my TBR. The books that I didn't read were The Four and Jane Eyre. I didn't get round to Jane Eyre. Oh, when will I ever get round to that book? I seriously need to prioritise it soon. I did manage to read from my TBR Behind the Net. What else was on there? Pretty Girls, Beartown, and Off to the Races. Those are the ones that I ticked off from my TBR. Without further ado, let's get into the video and do my January wrap up. Okay, I'm not going to do this in any particular order. I'm just going to go down the stack because I feel like that's just easier. I read Pretty Girls when I was on holiday. I was on a cruise at the start of January and I decided to take a thriller with me, specifically because this one as well was on my TBR. I thought, you know what, let's get it read. I feel like a thriller is great for on holiday as well, so I did enjoy that aspect. I ended up rating Pretty Girls I don't even know what I actually rated this book. I think it was a 2-star from me. Yeah, it was a 2-star I believe, or 2.5 star, because purely for the fact that although it did keep me guessing and it kept me obviously on the edge of my seat, it was so dark, and I feel like a Freida McFadden girly, didn't expect that going into it, because I feel like the difference between this and like a Freida McFadden or a Riley Sager book are those are kind of like beginner level thrillers, whereas this was definitely more like dark. And honestly, I'm still traumatized from a lot of the sentences in this book. I felt like it also wasn't really more of like a plot twisty thriller. It kind of felt like you could guess what was going to happen in the plot. It was more just talking you through them, and it had the shock factor of like, like this is a horrific event, but it didn't really have the shock factor of that was the craziest plot twist ever. Like it didn't have too many plot twists at all actually. Like I don't even think it had one, in my opinion. But this basically follows 2 sisters, and their other sister went missing when they was younger, when she was a teenager, and then it's years later they didn't find out what happened to the other sister, and the same thing has happened again in the present. So the same events have repeated themselves, but just with a new teenage girl, and this teenage girl is kind of in close proximity to their area that they live in, so they're forced to kind of revisit the past and uncover some really disturbing and hard truths about the people around them, about the life that they're living, about just everything that's going on within them that they were so blind to all these years. And I think that the plot was very, like, it is quite a thick thriller, but I feel like you need it to be this thick for the plot. However, like I said, didn't really feel like there was many plot twists in this book, and it was just a bit too dark for me, I think. I think maybe it was because I just tend to not read a lot of thrillers, so going into this I was like, wow, this is very gory and intense. I think it might be a bit of a level up from me, but I can appreciate the writing style. And I do think that Karin Slaughter had a good way of keeping me sort of with it. Like I wanted to keep reading the whole way through, so I feel like she did she did that well with her writing style, is what I'm trying to say. However, I will say I did nearly DNF it on holiday about halfway through, but I think that was more to do with the fact that I was in the sun, I was sunbathing, I was kind of feeling like the good vibes, and this was kind of not the good vibes I was feeling. So I just feel like maybe, I don't know, it wasn't the vibe for my vacation, but nonetheless, I did end up enjoying it. I know 2 stars is quite low, but I do just think without the plot twists, like I'm a plot twist girly, it didn't have too many, and also it was just a bit too dark for me, so 2 stars. This was actually the last book I read in January, and it is Lost and Lassoed by Lila Sage. This one is the 3rd book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series. The first one is Done and Dusted, the second one is Swift and Saddled, and then we have this one, and I think there's one coming after. I'm not sure what that one's called though, but I am very much anticipating the next book. I think that might be the last one as well in the series. So yeah, these books are perfect for filler reads, for getting out of a slump. They are super short. I think they're all pretty much 300 pages, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more. This one follows the older brother of the main girl in book 1. So basically we're following like the siblings of this ranch in Wyoming. This one is also kind of like dislike to lovers, it's best friend's brother, it's kind of like they're both like a little bit grumpy type of thing. They like can't stand each other, you know. They've kind of had this thing going on, like this hate to lovers thing going on. Like they've kind of got a lot of chemistry, but to get it out they're always like mean to each other, that type of vibe. But I do really enjoy these books. I rated this one a 4.25 just because obviously it's quite short, so we don't get a lot of time with the characters. But these books, honestly, if you're looking for a new small town romance series to start, I highly recommend this series because they just keep you hooked the whole way through. And I feel like Lila Sage has a really great talent for getting you so emotionally invested in the characters in such a short amount of time. I mean, there's like hardly any pages here, and she makes you want to keep reading, and she makes you obsessed with the characters and the found family and the setting and everything, and I do really, really love it. It also sets up really nicely for the next book. I can't wait for that one. And yeah, I really like this one. I like our 2 main characters. I like Teddy, she's quite fiery, but she's also got this like emotional side, and then I liked Gus because he's kind of like this grumpy single dad type of vibe. So I do recommend this series very, very much. Then I have Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros. I needed to read this one before Onyx Storm came out, so I got to work. Reading this book, and I feel like, I don't want to say it didn't disappoint me. It didn't disappoint me because I'd kind of gone in with low expectations purely based off of other people's reviews. I think I preferred Fourth Wing to this one. I rated this one a 3.5 stars. I think the ending did redeem itself for me. I love Fourth Wing, that's a 5-star read for me, and I have started Onyx Storm. However, I am really trying to take my time with that one. I'm reading it slowly but surely, and I'm so far loving it. I feel like that one's going to be a higher rating than Iron Flame. However, Iron Flame was a 3.5 stars. Not to say it was bad, because it absolutely wasn't. However, there's just a lot going on. Like, it's a big book, and I feel like halfway through it kind of lost me a little bit. It felt like we was going off on tangents and it got a bit slow, and I do feel like a lot of areas in this book could have been wrapped up a lot quicker because it did kind of drag in at times. I'm not going to say too much about the plot of this one if you've not read Fourth Wing yet. However, just imagine dragons, a dragon college, and lots of battle scenes, lots of like crazy stuff happening, lots of plot twists, bit of romance, found family, friendships. I recommend this series so much. However, this is just quite a big book, and I do feel like it could have been like cut out, like the middle bit could have kind of been cut out a little bit, perhaps. But also, if you're gonna read this, read it with Rebecca Yarros's playlist. I didn't know until I'd finished this one, but I went back and listened to it after, and I feel like it would have really set the scene for the book. So 3.5 stars from me. Then I read A Lady's Guide to Fortune Hunting by Sophie Irwin. I read this one in my 24-hour readathon a few weeks ago, and I rated it a 2 stars. I think this is actually my least favourite book from the entire month. It was just not, to me, it was not entertaining. The only redeeming factor for why it gets like the 2 stars is purely because of the Regency setting. I'm a big lover of the Bridgerton vibe and all of that kind of thing, so I do love reading about that. However, I think it's kind of almost a bit misleading because I would think this was a romance. However, we don't get any romance until literally like almost the last 10%, if that, of the book, and even that feels rushed. It's kind of just thrown out of nowhere with no build up, and suddenly the characters are just in love, and I was like, this doesn't even make sense. and I just feel like we was just following this woman going to balls and that was it. And I was like, when's the, like... I do like Sophie Owen's writing style, I just think it lacked plot. I have heard that the second one, A Lady's Guide to Scandal, is a lot better, so I will read that one because I do own it, and then I'll give that one a go. It basically follows a woman whose parents have died and left her, the eldest sibling, with a lot of debt, and she has to take care of her sisters, so of course she goes to try and find herself a rich husband. And to do that she has to move to London and enter sort of the high society courting scene, and she has to attend lots of balls and try to secure her husband. So we're following along on that, which that premise sounds really entertaining to me, but I just feel like this was just a bit of a letdown and it just lacked that entertainment factor. I'm not sure. Also, in my 24-hour readathon, I read Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This one was one that I had on my TBR for quite a while. I feel like it's a book talk fave, but like OG book talk. I feel like everyone has read it and I needed to get to it. I ended up rating this one at 3.75 stars. I felt like it was a really good romance book. I liked that we had the past present timeline, and I also liked that it kind of had like some layers of emotion running through it. It wasn't just a bog standard childhood friends to lovers romance. It also had like a deep emotional element to it, which I think really added to the plot. So I did really enjoy this book, and I just love a past present timeline. It makes me feel so much more connected to the characters. The only thing that kind of annoyed me with this book, which is a me problem to be honest, is the miscommunication factor. That will get me every time. It's so annoying, and it's so sad that all those years go by where the characters just waste so much time. So I was kind of a little bit just frustrated with that part. This basically follows our main female character Macy, and her mother passed away when she was younger, so her dad decides to buy a kind of holiday home away from home, where they can visit when real life is getting a bit too much for them. So he buys this house, and then they end up going like almost every weekend and every summer, and the next door neighbour to their house lives Elliot. Did that sentence make sense? I don't think it did. But Elliot lives next door to her, and they quickly become best friends and they grow up together. And that best friendship kind of turned into a bit of a romance, and they are just kind of each other's people. You can really tell that these characters have so much chemistry. You can feel their romance so much, and honestly, it really was cute. I loved seeing them kind of go through life together, and yeah, I liked our main characters a lot. I think this deserves a 3.75 to me. It just wasn't quite a 4-star. Also on holiday I read Off to the Races by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in the Gold Rush Ranch series. It's kind of like called Ruby Creek, I think, and this is Elsie Silver's OG cowboy romance series. It's her first series. I love Elsie Silver. This is a known fact. She's one of my favourite authors ever. I'm obsessed with her. Love her writing so much, and yeah, I have been meaning to get to this series for quite a while. I've heard mixed opinions because obviously with it being her first series, I've heard that it's not as sort of good as the other series because her writing style was less developed. However, I thought it was a solid book. I feel like it's a great book to bring on holiday. It was fast paced, it was entertaining the whole way throughout. I liked the characters, I liked the horse. I've heard a lot of people say that they didn't like the fact that the horse was quite a main focus. However, I thought the horse was really cute and I liked reading about the horse. I don't know. This one follows our main female character, Billy? I think she's called Billy. She needs a job, so she, I was gonna say auditions for her job. She interviews for her job on this ranch to be a horse trainer for this like big millionaire man who owns the sort of stables, and she ends up training this horse, and she has to kind of like live close by to the horse, and they end up becoming, you know, close proximity. They end up establishing a relationship of sorts. And the main guy is kind of like standoffish, a little bit grumpy, and the main girl is quite like vivacious, and she's got like quite a lot of personality and energy, and I feel like they really do complement each other well. I also feel like this book's set up really well for the next book, which I immediately bought. What is it called? A Photo Finish, I think it's called that, and that one follows In fact, I'm not going to say who it follows in case you want to read this one and kind of see for yourself, but I'm so excited for that one. Like, I can't wait. I'm going to read that one ASAP because that is on my February TBR. So yeah, I rated this one, I think, a 3.5 star, I think. Also, in my 24-hour readathon, I read The Wrong Mr. Right by Stephanie Archer. This is the second book in the Queen's Cove series. I picked up this series because I just love the covers, to be honest. Like, they're just gorgeous. And this one was kind of like a fun surfer. He's a surfer, she's a bookstore owner, and she basically realises that she's turning 30 soon and she's not really done much with her life. She wants more from life, she wants to achieve more. And she also wants to find herself a man. So she recruits our main male character, Wyatt, and kind of has a list of things to do. And he's going to help her find a man and also become more of a confident person and kind of do more fun things. So it's like he is sort of her mentor in life, if you know what I mean. And they end up falling for each other, of course. And I did really like this one. I love Stephanie Archer's writing style. I will say I do prefer the Vancouver Storm series, but this one's fun for like a sunny day, I feel like. It's fun to just kind of binge and read really quickly. It would be great to bring on vacation because they are all quite summery reads, but I think I preferred this one to the first one. And yeah, I enjoyed this one. I rated it at 3 stars. Also by Stephanie Archer, I read Behind the Net, which is the first book in the Vancouver Storm series. I rated this one at 4.5 stars. It was so close to a 5 stars for me, but I want to almost reserve that spot for The Fake Out because I think I'm going to love that one like with my entire heart and soul. So I did really enjoy this one. Like, the whole way through I couldn't put it down. When I wasn't reading it, I was thinking about this book. It was one of those books and I was giggling, I was kicking my feet. The characters had so much chemistry, so much, like, the romance was just, I'm obsessed. He is a NHL player and she is looking for a job. She gets hired as an assistant and it turns out she's his assistant and he basically asks her to be his live-in assistant, so it's forced proximity. And as it turns out, she had a crush on him in high school and he had a crush on her in high school, but neither of them knew. Yeah, I know, perfection of a plot, if you will. He is like this golden retriever man, but he's also quite like protective and things like that, and she's this musician girl who's been trapped quite badly in her past relationship, so she's trying to rebuild her confidence from that and become her own person and become this great musician. So yeah, they complement each other really well. It is the ice hockey vibe, it's sports romance, and you will be giggling and kicking your feet with this book. 4.5 stars. Moving on to my 5-star read of the month, which was Addicted for Now by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This book gave me the push that I needed to get the Addicted / Calloway Sister series read and finished because I am now obsessed with every single character. I love them all so much. I can't wait to read on with the series. I immediately bought Kiss the Sky afterwards. I'm currently in the middle of reading that one too. And if you didn't know, this series basically follows our female main character who's a sex addict and our male main character who is an alcoholic. So they are both addicts and it's kind of not your usual romance story. I would compare this series to Magnolia Parks if Magnolia Parks was American, that kind of thing. Where it's almost like a character study. We're just following our characters through the sort of trials and barriers that life throws at them. And we're just seeing how they overcome them and how they develop as people and in their relationships. It follows 3 sisters, Lily, Rose and Daisy, and their relationships within their friendship circle. The first 3 books follow Lily and Lo, which I just love them so much. Lo, Lauren Hale. Let's take a moment. Lauren Hale, everybody, yeah. I love him so much and I love Lily as well. I think that they're both so cute together. I can't wait to get onto Rose and Connor's story kind of more. I love Rose so much. I think Rose is my favourite female character in the entire series. I kind of relate to her in some ways. I love her. But yeah, reading this book, I just felt way more connected to the characters than I did in the first two books. I felt like we got so much more content of them all. It's obviously a thicker book, and this was just a 5-star through and through for me. Like I read it in like 2 days. I couldn't put it down. Seriously, when I wasn't reading this book, I was thinking about reading this book. 5 stars, guys. Then the other book I read on holiday was Long Island by Colm Tóibín. I bought this one in the airport and ended up really loving it. I had never heard of anyone talk about this book before. It turns out it is a sequel, but I do not think that matters, honestly. I think you get such a good, clear summary of book 1 in this book anyway that you don't necessarily need to read book 1 if you didn't want to. I rated this one a 4 stars. I felt like it was really good. Again, it's like a character study book. If you couldn't tell, I do love a character study book. This one follows a woman called Elise, I think she's called. And she is an Irish woman living in America in New York City. And she's married to this man, but then a man shows up at her door and says, listen, your husband has been cheating with my wife and my wife is now pregnant. When my wife gives birth to the baby, I'm going to leave the baby on your doorstep and the baby is going to be your problem. And basically our main female character has to come to terms with this. She has to decide if she is going to carry on in her marriage to Tony in America, or if she's just not really going to put up with that. She ends up going back to Ireland to kind of visit her mum, visit her hometown, and back in her hometown is sort of an old flame, a first love type of situation. So we're kind of following all these different characters with interwoven lives and all the mess that is happening right now with them. You're following them along on how they make their decisions. You kind of the whole way through are like thinking, oh, I hope she does this, I hope she does that, like I hope she makes this decision. And honestly, with the ending, it was sort of left off on a weird cliffhanger. It didn't really give me much closure, and I felt like I wanted to know more. Like I wanted to know what what was going to happen. I feel like it just ended quite abruptly, and it did make me realise that one of the men in this book like is so frustrating, and so he can't make a decision to save his life. He can't. And I did really end up liking it. I would compare this to sort of like a Normal People vibe in the terms of like it's so character driven, and it sort of is quite mundane in a lot of ways. It follows them through their sort of slice of life. It's that kind of vibe, but I personally really enjoy books like that. And the last physical book is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This one is the first book in a trilogy, and it follows a town of people who live in this sort of small town that doesn't really get much money, doesn't really get much tourism. It's kind of a struggling town, but the one thing going for them is this hockey team, and they will put their lives and souls into this hockey team. They love this hockey team because it's sort of their main saviour to kind of reach success as a town, I don't know. And then something happens and the town is divided in two. The people that want to find justice for this horrible act, and the people that want to brush it under the carpet and forget about it and sort of pretend it never happened for the sake of the hockey team and for the sake of the town. So you kind of read along. It gives you so many different POVs of people in the town, which I loved, because we're seeing so many different viewpoints. It's not just like the main girl, the main boy and someone else. It's like everyone in the town gets a POV, and I love that. I rated this one a 4 stars, I think. Could be wrong. I think this was a 4 stars, but I can't wait to move on to the other books in the series because I did really enjoy it and it is a very impactful read. And my Kindle book of the month was Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Taz, I think. This one is a Greek mythology dark fantasy Hercules retelling where Hercules is a woman. I really enjoyed this book. I felt like it was very unique. I liked the writing style because it was quite bingeable and humorous and easy to get through. I liked how it was the Greek mythology vibe, and I also liked the sprinkling of romance, which I will say we didn't get too much of because I think book 2 is going to be way more romance heavy, which I'm here for. I believe it is a Why Choose, but I could be wrong. The first one definitely wasn't, but in my opinion, but the second one I think is going to be more Why Choose. And it basically follows this girl who kind of lives this horrible life. She was raised really horribly. She is homeless, and one day she's doing a test, and in this school they basically have to prick their thumb and press it on the paper to verify it's them or something, and her blood reacts to the paper, and these people come and they say, you're coming with us, you need to be in this trial to become, I forget what it is, I think it's like a Spartan or like an Olympian or something like that, I'm not sure, but she basically has to go through this trial and become certified, and she gets a mentor, and there's this whole thing going on. There's quite a lot going on, to be honest. I will say there's quite a lot of names thrown in there that are quite hard to wrap your head around, but it was a 4-star for me. I did really enjoy it, and I can't wait to read the next book. However, there's quite a lot of names that I had to remember, but I am very excited to get on to book 2 so I can get more into the romance. And that is my January reading wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these. I feel like I've had a great month. Thank you so much for watching today's wrap up. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. I really hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye guys.